and the F77 being the flagship product from Ultraviolette. It embodies design in a way that no other motorcycle across the globe does at the moment.
So let's say going back to and convincing both of your parents that we want to just leave our highly secure job and get into a startup culture, and how what was their first reaction?
So this was still in the days of, like you mentioned, engineering, right? And that's phase in one's life where you still don't know what you want to do mainstream.
So you said that your vehicles are certified for 40 countries globally, right? And
Right.
you're exporting completely built units from your Bangalore facility.
The chaotic energy that you're talking about is still very much there.
It's
Fortunately or
there.
unfortunately, that's something that I think pushes all of us.
So, hi everyone, this is Divya, the editor at Humans of EV, and we're back again with another episode of the Fireside Chat show. And today, we are about to meet none other than the mind behind the India's fastest electric motorcycle. The man who went from a sunrise garage in Bengaluru into a global racetrack where the bikes are making and setting records. So, from childhood experiments to breaking speed records, this man embodies what happens when aviation obsession meets unstoppable startup grit. So, if you think electric bikes can't bring the thrill, you haven't heard Narayan's story yet. Narayan, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us on the show today. And I'm sure the audience can't wait to dive in. So, shall we hit full throttle? Are you ready for this?
Of course, and likewise, happy to be having this conversation with you, and thank you for that introduction to Ultraviolet.
Awesome. So let's address the elephant in the room, the European launch that you just did. So let's say you're standing at standing at the Eiffel Tower in Paris, where you've just launched the F77 in 10 European countries, and there's a curious French rider who comes up to you and asks, "What makes this Indian motorcycle better than our European bikes?" So let's say you have 30 seconds or less. What would be your elevator pitch for the Made in India for the World product?
I mean, what we stand for is design, technology, and performance. And I think in the world of electric vehicles, so we have built some superb platforms, and the F77 being the flagship product from Ultraviolet, it embodies design in a way that no other motorcycle across the globe does at the moment. Power packed in terms of performance and future ready tech. So I mean, these three phrases would be my pitch to anybody across the world talking about Ultraviolet.
Awesome. Great. So, you said that your vehicles are certified for 40 countries globally, right? And
Right.
you're exporting completely built units from your Bangalore facility. So, when European riders experience that speed and the thrill, so what's the most common reaction from them that makes you the proudest Indian as an entrepreneur? What makes you the proudest?
My observations over the last few months, we've had our vehicles in Europe for the last 1 year. I mean, we launched last month, but we've had vehicles undergoing various forms of highway testing, road testing in Europe for the last year, right? We've had a lot of feedback coming in, and I think what satisfies us the most is the fact that people say it's a great motorcycle that happens to be electric, right?
Uh-huh.
This is quite important because pure motorcyclists want the thrill and the feel of a motorcycle, great dynamics on the road or on the track, and you want all of this in place primarily, and then the other aspects of riding comes into play. And in this case, we've cracked all of that, and good to see resonance from across the world. We've had our vehicles in India for the past year, a little over a year, and good to see the resonance from other countries. Also, because EVs in general, EV two-wheelers have been, the reputation of EV two-wheelers is quite confusing. You have a few good
Mhm.
products and you've got a lot of lukewarm products across the world, right?
Mhm.
Not from Southeast Asia, etc.
Mhm.
And this has, I mean, in my opinion, has done a lot of disservice to the capability of electric vehicles. You don't
Mhm.
find the same concern with four-wheelers. Brands like Tesla and today a lot of the Chinese companies as well are right at the top of the game, giving the IC engine companies a run for the money or even
Yeah.
out, outperforming them in many aspects, right? And now I think we are sort of positioned as the forerunners of that in the two-wheeler space.
Mhm. Great. So, coming back to your early days, so you and Neeraj, you've been friends for over 2 decades now, starting from your early schooling days to your days in the BMS College of Engineering. So, you've always been a team, competing together as partners and winning more than, around 40 engineering competitions is what I read. So,
Yeah.
what was it about your partnership that made you such a formidable team, and how did those early wins shape your approach to building Ultraviolet today?
Sure. So this was still in the days of, like you mentioned, engineering, right? And that's phase in one's life where you still don't know what you want to do mainstream. In
Yeah.
India, it was either medical or engineering, and then uh, through some period of time, you figure out what you want to be doing.
Mhm.
Um, and what we frankly figured was the syllabus in college is not really in line with what the industry wants, or what the industry wants you to be geared up for. So we started spending a lot of time in those 4 years taking part in the creative engineering competitions. That's when it was really taking off in India.
Uh-huh.
IIT Bombay had interesting fests called the Tech Fest. IIT Chennai had something called the Shastra.
Mhm. Mhm.
Required us to bring together, creative problem solving from across design thinking, across electronics, computers, robotics, and whatnot. And over 4 years, we ended up winning over 40 of these competitions. Went all the way from building aircrafts to automobiles to submersibles to amphibious vehicles to whatnot. Combination of things that had even lithium-ion batteries on them back in 2005. So our work with lithium-ion batteries, in fact, goes back 20 years if I was to think about it now.
Oh, wow. So
And
you said that sorry, you were saying something.
and you asked me the question of what makes us a formidable team.
Yeah.
Um, I think it was our ability to innovate across domain.
Mm-hmm.
And I think gone are the times where you innovate purely sticking to one domain. Now everything is smart, everything is connected. Vehicles of tomorrow do a lot more than just take you from point A to point B. So when you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, it's as much mechanics, electronics, computers, um, all of it coming together to form a seamless experience owning a vehicle, right? So I mean I think the genesis of that was set during these projects in college,
Early
and
days.
both of us, I think we were also we were more keen on disruptive approaches than winning the competition. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
doing something incrementally better than what the rest of the field was doing was not as motivating for us as doing something disruptive that had a far higher chance of surpassing what
What existed.
mainstream approach.
Mhm. Okay, so you said that you've tried your hands on everything, like from building aircrafts to batteries to all of these. So what is it that made you choose the bikes?
Okay, so this is cut to, I mean, that was 2005 and 6, now cut to 2016, 10 years down the line.
Uh-huh.
Those 10 years, Neeraj and I both went our separate ways in our professional careers. I studied
Mhm.
2 masters in automobile design, worked with the Daihatsu Toyota in Japan, worked with Volkswagen in Germany. Neeraj parallelly was working with Yahoo right after college, then went to B school. Post that, joined a company called NetApp, working with the CTO's office in commercializing horizon or future ready technology, right? And
Okay.
um, so in 2014-15, we started seeing gaps in our professional domains, right? The large companies were frankly quite risk averse, were slow to take up on disruptive innovation. Companies
Mhm.
like Tesla from 2008-9 to 2014 had
Mhm.
showcased that a focused group of individuals with a single-minded focus can severely outpace the incumbents. That
Okay.
was quite inspiring. And I mean, neither of us come from a business background. Both are my father's a doctor, so are Neeraj's parents.
Uh-huh.
For us, starting this company was less about entrepreneurship, but more about pushing innovation in India
Mhm.
faster. And if you look at the automotive scenario back then, 2015-16,
Mhm.
India was playing catch up to the east or the west.
Mhm.
Trends were either set in Europe or Japan. Today,
Mhm.
of course, China is a formidable player. We have Korean companies in the auto sector as well. So our push was we knew we have the talent here. We knew we have the talent on hardware, software, and what it takes to build great, well-designed products. Is it
Mhm.
not time that we make an attempt at building something world-class? And the kinds of companies that have inspired us are companies like I would say Sony, what Sony did to Japan after the war in terms of growth of technology. Company like Dyson, which has taken something so mundane and turned it into a highly design and tech-centric uh,
Yeah.
domain. Say something like an Apple, which is more of a well understood example, Nike. So these are brands that motivate us where the design and tech are the core drivers, and the
Mhm.
product goes beyond just utility and goes into mainstream lifestyle.
Sounds amazing.
So yeah, so that's the ingredients that all came together in 2016 when both of us moved back to India. I was in Europe, Neeraj was in US. Uh,
Okay.
made the move back to Bang. I mean, helped that Bangalore is our home city. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of talent that we're talking about in terms of hardware, software. There's some very interesting companies based out of Bangalore doing interesting things. So it was a good talent pool for us to start out with, as well.
So, just a small follow-up here. I'm sure that you guys were doing very well in your careers. You were working with big companies and you had quite a settled career that way. So, let's say going back to and convincing, both of your parents that, we want to just leave our highly secure job and get into a startup culture and, what was their first reaction?
I think part of our success today is the amount of support that our parents have been able to provide, both in terms of emotionally as well as allowing us that space to experiment and explore.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that we were doing well in our respective careers gave them that comfort that in case things don't work out, we still have that as something we will go
You
back
can
to.
always go back. Okay.
Yes. And
Okay.
from our point of view, like I said, we are okay to take risks that apply to our own careers. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't start this with a plan B. We didn't start this lukewarm with, starting a company while still in a job and then figuring out when to quit as traction builds up.
You went all in.
Yeah, we went all in 2015.
Great. So, coming back to your early days, so there's this picture that I came across, your small office where you guys were, sitting with the team. There were wires, and if I remember, there's a Tony Stark idol sitting right there on the table of you. So it kind of feels like, the Iron Man or, sorry, the Tony Stark workshop coming to life. So, what I've read is that you would have those bike testing sessions going on early in the morning, so you would have students watching those bikes and turning their eyes about what just went past them. So when you think about that raw, chaotic energy of those early days, what does that moment represent about the spirit that still drives Ultraviolet today? And more importantly, what would that younger version of yourself think if he could see the F99 breaking records?
I mean, multiple topics there. The
Okay.
chaotic energy that you're talking about is still very much there.
It's
Fortunately or
there.
unfortunately, that's something that I think pushes all of us.
Mm.
But yeah, while the team has grown, the back then the space that you were talking about was where we grew from a team of 3 people to a team of about 25 folks. This was when we needed a space that felt like an office space. The first
Mhm.
2 months of research and stuff we were doing at our homes. Then we felt as we needed more talent or more people to come on board and join us, we need
Mhm.
a dedicated space.
Mhm.
So one of our friends, her name is Roshni, and her her home had a was on the third floor, and the floor the ground floor was rented to a bank, and the first
Okay.
floor was vacant, right? And she was nice enough to help us with. We were still bootstrapped. We had no investor capital come into the company at that point. It was money that both of us had saved during our time in our careers.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we needed every help possible and every bit of help. And she came in and said, "Okay, why don't you guys? The space has been vacant for a few years. If
Mhm.
it suits you, we'll figure out some nominal rental and we'll get started." So that
Wow, great.
we told her once we raise some money, we will sort of figure out the terms of the rental, etc. So we
Uh-huh.
got started there, and I think the first core innovation that we did was a lot on the battery tech. Right, we knew the secret sauce for long-standing innovation in electric vehicles.
Mhm.
A lot of it is centered around the battery.
Yeah.
Unlike the IC engine world, where a lot is centered around the engine,
Mhm.
here, motors are well understood or better understood, I would say. Motor technology has been existing for a few decades now.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
But battery tech and providing safe, high performance, high power, high currents at various voltage bands in very safe measures to whatever use case you're talking about, that was a wide space. You had
Okay.
either the low end of the spectrum, the low end scooters, and you had innovation in the cars. But this entire spectrum of the segment of two-wheelers, from motorcycles to higher performance motorcycles, was kind of untouched. And
Mhm.
that's where the bulk of the volume is globally. If you look at India, out of India two-wheelers, we sell about 20 million two-wheelers a year. And 65% is motorcycles and about 25% is scooters.
Okay.
That is the real mix. In the world of EVs, you see more scooters today because go-to market is simpler for scooters.
Yeah.
Cycles require more R&D, more testing, more technology development, so it takes longer, right?
Mhm.
So we knew this was the approach we want to take. And for the reasons I just mentioned, scooters had gotten commodity. There was not so much more to build in terms of a scooter. So, and also the market size was actually larger in the motorcycle space. The approach we took was quite similar to what Tesla did with the Model S. The Model S was, of course, a little more premium and performance oriented. But the Model S did a lot of the heavy lifting for ground up R&D on the powertrain and the software side of the vehicles. And that is what the F77 is for us. So we start with a top-down approach, knowing if we crack the technology here, scaling downstream should be relatively simpler. So yeah, that's how we got started. This office was on the first floor. The testing days that you were talking about, quite a few memories there because we had no elevator to take the prototypes down. So 6, 7 of us had to come at 4:35 in the morning, get the vehicles down. Our testing used to happen in the outskirts of Bangalore in a road called the Nice Road, which is a nice road that goes around the city on the outskirts. And there were some patches of it which was still under development and not open to public. So those became our testing zones during the early days. And yeah, a lot of hacky ways to get things done. That's what that phase of Ultraviolet represented, where you don't have the basic luxury of money solving problems. You had some very talented, smart people that were doing this out of pure passion and motivation. And yeah, those 2 years were, I think, the building blocks of what we are today was set up then.
Okay. Okay. So we just missed a small bit part here that what would your version today would tell your younger version of that day that, what you've made today.
Right. Oh, I mean, it's incredible, right? India's been building motorcycles for 70 years. And don't we all think it's time of course, we understand that India is not a market where high performance vehicles are the norm. Of course, it's a more niche kind of a segment. But don't we want something that competes or outcompetes the rest of the world when it comes to pure performance and technology? So our constant one point of dissatisfaction was, all of the large players are well capitalized, have very good R&D teams, could well afford to do something that puts India on the world map of performance and technology. But it hasn't happened yet. And that is what the F99 project was all about. Right? And if I was to look back 6 years back from today, it would sort of be unbelievable, right? Because those were the days where we were still we were still figuring out the fundamentals of whether it's even possible to deliver this kind of performance with the technology and manufacturing processes available in India, with price points also that are at parity with the IC engine segment. So when you bring all of these factors in the mix, then it becomes quite a seemingly impossible challenge. So yeah, if I was to look back from that point in time, it would be unbelievable.
Okay. All right. So when we talk about how your design philosophy comes from aviation, so you personally build aero models and Neeraj had a drone startup in
Yes.
2009. So your team has that aircraft engineering background. So when you look at the F77 and the F99 with their speed, so what specific aviation principle are you most proud of translating to the two wheels?
So, okay, lot of layers there. At a very high level, I would talk about functional honesty being a key driving factor in decision making, right? And aircrafts are well understood for functional honesty, where
Okay.
you don't have liberty to do things just because um, it looks cool or somebody likes it, etc. Right? Every part of an aircraft is serving one or multiple functions. If not, it simply doesn't deserve to be there. Right?
Okay.
From that perspective, when you look at the F77, I'll talk about electronics, I'll talk about mechanics, where this philosophy sort of went in, and of course on the design side. On design, one, we needed to create a new identity for electric vehicles from Ultraviolette. And what is this identity? If you look at Italian vehicles, there's a certain amount of sensuality and aggression and power that you associate with brands like Lamborghini or Ducati. When you think of Japan, the Kawasaki's, the Yamahas, etc., there's a certain sense of raw aggression that comes with the way the vehicles are designed. So what is it for us? And I think we came down to, of course, it has to look aviation derived, but of course, a certain amount of futuristic in terms of being bold and out there, and a certain amount of sophistication of what tech of the future needs to represent.
Mm-hmm.
That is sort of the identity we crafted. And on motorcycles, the form of the motorcycle is a very, very large contributor to the function.
Yeah.
Because you're doing high speeds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in cornering situations, you're in high braking, high zones of acceleration. The body of the rider and the machine need to fit together
Blending
seamlessly,
together.
function as one seamless unit.
Mm-hmm.
Not as a bigger requirement in other segments like a scooter, I would say, or even a car. A car, you're bucketed in a seat, you're disconnected from the exterior of the vehicle.
Yeah.
A scooter, it is more of a low performance or low powered usage. The scooter seat, if you think about it, is more like a bench. You're just sitting on a bench and holding a handlebar.
Mm-hmm.
Motorcycle is where you're fully integrated into the vehicle.
Mm.
So the sculpting of the vehicle, the way the form of the vehicle is sculpted, the way the body is crafted, plays a huge role in your riding experience.
Mm-hmm.
And also on the aerodynamics, right? And in an electric vehicle, you want every aero advantage that you can gather, right? All that leads to more optimization and more range ultimately on the vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So design played a key role in both of these, aerodynamics and the ergonomics of the rider from a secure riding experience. Um, Second, on the mechanics, we are dealing with heavy battery systems here. For comparison, an engine powered vehicle, an IC engine vehicle would have an engine block and a transmission of about 20-25 kgs and a fuel tank of about 10 kgs or 10 to 12 liters of fuel. And the mass distribution there is vastly different from what we are dealing with, which is about 50 plus kgs of a battery pack, because we need, I mean, what we're outputting is Asia's highest range on our vehicles,
Yeah.
300
Yeah.
plus kilometers. So
Mm-hmm.
that requires a certain threshold from a battery capacity and a weight standpoint. So while the mass distribution is very different, our motorcycles, the F-77s, need to still feel and handle like the best IC motorcycles out there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you take it to a racetrack, it should not feel like a new experience or an unsafe experience. It should feel just as comfortable as the Japanese or the
Regular.
European motorcycles,
Mm-hmm.
because that is a habit that is well understood over the last few decades. So while the tech changes, we did not want to change the riding perception or the
The
riding
feel.
habit.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, for a motorcyclist, all of this boils down to how secure and safe you feel doing high speeds in various conditions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that is where one of the people heading engineering at our end, called Vinayak, his prior experience was with companies like ISRO, and then with a company like Safran working on landing gear systems for um, Airbus, Boeing, and multiple other clients that they were. So Safran is a French aviation consultancy.
Okay.
So he brought in the aspect of weight reduction and designing a chassis from scratch. Because in the IC engine world, the motorcycles have evolved for so many years
Mm-hmm.
without fundamentally new systems coming into place. It's either the engine CC has gone up from say 200 to 300 to 400, but architecture has not changed too much. But
Mm-hmm.
in this case, we had to rethink the whole architecture from scratch, and that is where the first principles approach from an aviation world came into play. And those are also areas where you simulate and analyze and test everything to a very, very high level of confidence before you build out the first proto.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can't build an aircraft and have a bunch of crashes and then optimize it, right? You need to have supreme confidence in what you're building before you start uh, making it a
Investing
real
it.
prototype.
Yeah.
So that helped save us a lot of time on the
Mm.
engineering side, helped give us a new approach to the architecture of the vehicle. Our teams leading the battery technology also came from the aviation world, companies like Honeywell, which was doing avionic systems. So the aircrafts are also devices where you cannot have a cascading failure. If something does go wrong, I mean, it's a touchy topic given the world we're living in today and the last few weeks of what has happened.
Yeah.
But I would say among the most safest of systems from an electronics perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the ideology that defined our architecture on battery safety, where today we've got um, a lot of patents on battery safety from mechanical, thermal, electrical, electronic, and software systems that can kick in from less than a second to milliseconds to microseconds in terms of the eventual, I mean, the circumstance that you're riding with. So
All
yeah,
right.
that's where aviation played a huge role across the board. And
Yeah, I thought it was just you and Neeraj, but now you're saying that the whole board was, kind of bringing in that DNA.
yes,
Great. So, you've worked with, Daihatsu in Japan, Volkswagen in Germany. So you had this beautiful trajectory, global automotive design, right? So
so
what made you come back to India in 2015 and start from the scratch? So you earlier mentioned that you were noticing gaps, in your careers where companies were not really focusing on something disruptive or innovative, right?
so
So there was a huge so when you work for, these big companies, so letting them focus on something new or bring in some really different innovation is very difficult. I get it. It's easier in the
right,
startup world. So
right.
what was that key moment when you thought, okay, I'm done here and I really need to get into something that makes a change?
I don't think it was a key moment. It was more of a phase of growing um, disappointment that I believed I could contribute more at a fundamental innovation level.
Mm-hmm.
But largely, the company's outlook was more on incremental development and not doing something fundamentally disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see this in multiple workspaces, not just me, a lot of my colleagues working in similar companies across the world. I mean, the industry was quite complacent, I would say, at that point. And companies like Tesla were seen as an interesting project and largely written off by the large companies as, yeah, it'll live its life, have its hype, and then it's going to wither away, right?
Uh-huh.
But by 2012, 13, 14, that sentiment started to change a little bit.
Okay.
And that is when I could also see that while this was happening, the large companies were also restricted by, um, a legacy that they had built over the last few decades, where the legacy was an advantage until this point. When fundamental shift in technology started to happen, that legacy became a baggage that didn't allow you to scale faster.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they've got a few billions of dollars invested in their current lines. How and when do they, take a different path?
Pull the plug from one and plug
Yes,
into the other one. So that kind of becomes challenging for them as well.
yes. And they're public listed companies that also, I mean, that plus the legacy, plus how much has been invested, all of it.
Kind of refrains them from moving
Yes.
forward.
And that sort of realization happened. And in the meanwhile, I could see in India, the startup space was picking up, right? At that
Mm-hmm.
point, it was more SaaS companies and e-commerce that was picking up. We still didn't have too much in terms of hardware. But that's where I think the naivety of thinking we could do it helped us. We didn't analyze too much into is the sector getting investment? Do we get into it? If we had done all that, it would have been a scary proposition and most companies would not get started.
Yes, that's true. Most companies wouldn't get started if they keep speculating about what could go wrong because there are
Yeah.
100 things that can go wrong. But if you have the hunch of one that could go right, that's
Yeah.
where the whole thing builds up.
Yeah, and if you think about it, most capital at that point was going into in the valley, right? Tesla had created a ecosystem there where a lot more startups came about in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, a lot of capital is going there, but India was still seen as a can it really become a hub for technology?
Mm-hmm.
And a group of five, six people working on something to a typical investor would not answer that question.
That's true. Okay. So, since I have now, discovered so far in the session that we've had that there is, Tesla has been kind of an inspiration for you. So,
Right.
in 2015, when you and Neeraj saw Tesla proving that electric could be, desirable through performance and design, but instead of following Tesla's car path, you chose motorcycles. What did you see in India's mobility landscape that Tesla had missed globally?
Sure. So what the world fails to see is the sheer amount of two-wheelers
Mm-hmm.
in India, Southeast Asia, and Europe and Latin America is a massive opportunity, and it's a massive untapped opportunity where, yes, there are the Japanese and the European companies, and of course, we've got brands in India over the last few decades that have also started building homegrown vehicles that have a history of building credible vehicles, right? But
Mhm.
somehow it gets missed out in terms of the global media being driven more from innovation in the car segment primarily. So, having grown in India, having each of us been enthusiasts ourselves, so from starting with our father's motorcycles to then being able to purchase our own motorcycles during our careers,
Positive.
we understand the market, we understand the sentiment, we also understood the challenges.
Mhm.
So that was important. And it was also important for us to understand from an electric perspective what made Tesla work, because Tesla wasn't the first EV. There
Mm-hmm.
were other attempts by Japanese and the American companies before that.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a massive experiment by a company called Better Place also on EVs before that, right?
Mm-hmm.
On battery swapping.
Mm-hmm.
None of these had panned out the way people hoped
Tesla.
it would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Tesla was sort of outlier from that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke to a lot of the owners, not just to, I mean, of course, we understood the tech that was driving the product innovation.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to know from a lot of the owners what made them want to be driving a Tesla. And a lot of them we found, were owning a German vehicle in the garage, right? And they would still rather prefer to be seen in the Tesla. This is the early adopter days that I'm talking about, Steve.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So what is important is any automobile that you purchase, whether it's a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler, is very, very aspirational, regardless of the segment. Which
Mm-hmm.
is why a market like India, every segment has so many different offerings from various companies, because you tend to associate your personality with something that a brand is doing in that particular space or segment.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of decision making that you may not be able to articulate on paper, but it goes on subconsciously. So
Okay.
this was important to figure out from a Tesla perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that learning. Also, 2016 is when an interesting company called Gogoro launched scooters in Taiwan. This was
Mm-hmm.
a different take on mobility with a battery swap ecosystem that was working pretty well at that point in time. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we spent some time in different parts of the world understanding tech, understanding the consumer perspective before putting our thoughts into what to get started with. And when we came back to Bangalore and started thinking about critically what do we want to get into,
Mm-hmm.
there, of course, we could see the scooter segment was growing. But at that point in time, our view was scooters, the tech there has become commodity. What are we going to do that is going to be vastly different from competition? So till
Uh-huh.
we have the answer to that, let us not get into scooters.
Okay.
And that's the answer took us a while, which is why we launched the Tesseract 2 months back. So yeah, going back to that point. So we thought scooters not for today. We
Mm-hmm.
looked at the superbike segments, which are your 1000 cc motorcycles and above.
Mm-hmm.
These are highly enthusiast driven and are not really going to make sense from a company sustenance perspective, right? You need a certain threshold of volumes to come in, revenues to come in to keep R&D going, to keep expanding or keep growing as a company. So starting
Mm-hmm.
with something that niche also was not an option.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at cars in India, right? Cars is quite complex. Motorcycle is a selfish purchase, but a car is a
Hot,
democratic
hot to
decision.
purchase.
Yeah, your immediate family, extended family,
Right.
everybody,
Everyone plays a role there.
yeah, all your colleagues, everybody needs to give you that one thumbs up to,
Yeah.
and it's a larger ticket size also, right, from a cost of the vehicle perspective. So
Agree.
understandably, a lot more anxiety goes into the
Mm-hmm.
purchasing this thing patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so all of this, plus the fact that mid-segment motorcycles, right, which is 200 to 600 cc, which is
Mm-hmm.
where Ultraviolette is today operating at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That segment was growing rapidly in India from 2010 to 2020.
Okay.
While the numbers in that segment may not meet the sheer numbers of the scooter segment, the
Mm-hmm.
revenue share of that segment was vastly higher than what the scooters were doing, right?
Okay.
If you think about it, India performance motorcycles in India started with Hero, Hero Honda had the CBZ, and then the Pulsars came in.
Mm-hmm.
Then TVS had a product called the Fiero. That was the era of 150s, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that was uh, just prior to 2010. And since then, today we've got every Japanese and European, pretty much every company across the world with similar product offerings in the Indian market. Recently, Harley and Hero had a partnership to launch the 400 cc vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
KTM and Bajaj have had an association for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Collaboration between BMW and TVS on manufacturing of vehicles. So this segment has seen steady rise in the last decade. And
Mm-hmm.
also, this segment represents very high emotional connect between vehicle, machine, and the owner.
The owner.
So and it didn't have any tech in the EV side. So all of these put together meant this is a very compelling uh, segment
Option
to
to
start with.
pursue because there was no one in that space at that point of
Yes.
time.
And once we crack this, right, the tech is built for this layer. It's easier for us to scale down.
Okay. All right. So again, now that you said that, the tech and, these were your points of focus. So let's talk about the no compromise approach, wherein when you launched your vehicles, there was a lot of push from the government side. There was subsidies and everything, right? So while the competitors were chasing subsidies and the price wars, so you built, bikes that does 258 kilometers per hour and just broke the quarter mile record, right?
Yeah.
So when you first sketched this machine, did you believe that an Indian startup could actually build something this insane and without the support of the government subsidies and all of that? Did you think that the price parity wars or something like this would actually kind of put down the brilliant tech that you've bought in and the product that you had just put in the market?
That's a good point that you mentioned, the subsidies. That was another reason we didn't get into the scooter segment at that point, right? Because the subsidy played a very big role in affecting market share and fluctuation in market share as and when it changed also. And subsidy is a double-edged sword. While I could also say that, yeah, it would have helped us to be in those segments. The other side is if you're building your entire stack up of from the cost of the vehicle to the entire economics of the P&L of the company.
Okay.
Say for the first 3-4 years, the subsidies factored into your gross margins and into how you are able to grow market share. The moment it goes away, then you're facing a very different kind of a challenge altogether.
Yeah, because the consumers are now used to the subsidies and so are you. And then once they are plugged off, it kind of does become difficult to maintain that particular market share. It would kind of give you a steep fall.
And two things happen. One is the market share might fall because the cost of the vehicle goes up. Two is the profitability that you're heading towards is now looking very different because that subsidy component is
gone.
So
have two distinct machines, right? The F77 and the F99, right? So how do you so both of them have different segments of performance. So one is 155 kilometer per hour, and the top speed of 7.8 second to 0 to 100 acceleration, while
right.
F99 that just became the fastest Indian superbike, and with a 258 kilometer per hour top speed and just and 3 seconds of acceleration from 0 to 100. So
Right.
how do you balance building accessible performance versus, an absolute no limit engineering?
Right. So the first focus was on the F77. Like I said, we were looking at the mid segment. So that way you would position the F77 between a 300 to a 500cc band in terms of comparison with multiple other products in the market. This is also a segment that has some threshold volumes where it makes sense for a company to scale their product portfolio. The F99 was an offshoot project that started once the F77 was more stable.
Okay.
And once our bandwidth allowed us for a little more experimentation on higher performance bands. And this goes back to what I first mentioned. India has been making motorcycles for 70 years, and we don't have anything that, not a single product that can outcompete a global competitor in terms of tech or performance. That the answer to that from our side was the F99. And the desire for us was to put India on the world map and to sort of establish that, yes, there are people with the talent and the know-how who can build incredible machines that can take on the Japanese or the European counterparts.
Doing. So what's that one policy change that would help Indian startup like yours compete globally on innovation rather than just the price parity?
I mean, the policies have largely been proactive, but like you said, the most benefit is towards the mass adoption,
adoption,
and which is also the logic is there, right? You want to drive more numbers in terms of pure adoption of electric vehicles.
Also, when you work towards a mass adoption, the carbon footprint is lesser. So I think that's what they've been targeting.
But for a company like us, which our mentality is slightly different, we are not saying we are not going to make mass products. We just said mass products are going to be phase 2 of the company's because we want to build the highest level of tech and then scale it downwards. So the reason we've announced Tesseract, the scooter, is to cater to, of course,
the mass, the
Yes.
mass, the masses, yeah.
And think of the benefit of what comes with the Tesseract. At a similar price point to the other EV scooters in the market today, we are a performance band.
Yeah, so you've been getting down the steps and
Yes.
making it simpler to suit the different target audience.
Yes. But the advantage is when you go top down, you still retain the DNA of the top development,
Performance, yes.
which is why things like tech, design, and performance still play a key role and is going to be a big differentiator on the Tesseract as well. So yes, coming back to the question, so our approach was a little contrary to the conventional, let's just get started with a mass product approach, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we weren't able to benefit at that point in time. But I would say now moving forward, if we could do something on the PLI side as a collective, I mean, we're not talking about Ultraviolet alone. Now, what we're competing with is other nations that have had now a certain momentum in building EVs. The pace at which China has grown in the last 20, 30 years, a lot of it was under the radar, but we're now starting to see some of the positives from that. So collective drive towards, and hardware is as an industry is capital intensive. So for a startup, any and every benefit on manufacturing, on the PLI side, etc., would make a huge difference for India to collectively innovate faster.
Okay, so now, talking about the Tesseract and the Shockwave. So you've launched Tesseract at 1.2 lakh and, with 70,000 bookings and the Shockwave at 1.5 lakh, you've called these your mass products, right? So how do you balance maintaining Ultraviolet's premium DNA while making it accessible to families and daily commuters?
Okay, so that I think the definition of the word premium is key here. When to us, historically, premium means expensive, right? It has been simplified by the whole world as premium equals expensive.
Yeah.
If you try to break down what is the value add for that delta and expensive, right? But to us, let's delink the two. When we say premium, we mean premium performance, premium design, premium technology. The fact that we are able to do that at price points that may not seem premium or may seem more closer to the mass segments, it's a huge benefit to the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
So for us, the positioning is always going to be premium or futuristic in terms of design, tech, and performance. Price points are a factor of how much of the IP you own in-house. So you're reducing the number of layers of margins that you're spending on outsourcing components. That is one. And two, it's a factor of scale as well. On the IC engine side, scale plays a bigger factor in terms of governing price points. But today, since the EV industry is so nascent in terms of technology, developing all the tech in-house has a very big effect in terms of your pricing advantage as well.
Because you can control the quality as well as the pricing both.
Yes.
So it's not dependent henceforth.
Yes.
Okay. So
I think about recalibrating what premium used to mean and what it could mean.
Yeah, exactly. So for you, a premium is more about, giving the end consumer the premium experience rather than just the premium pricing.
Yes,
Your
absolutely.
focus is more about the experience.
Yes.
Great. So, you've said that your motivation wasn't to become entrepreneurs. It was to bridge the gap between how fast consumer electronics evolved versus automobiles, right? So, what personally drives you to keep pushing when the engineering gets complex and funding gets tough?
Both are different perspectives. So engineering getting complex is something that excites us. The core group of people that we are at Ultraviolet, we are here because we want to solve complex challenges.
Agreed, yeah.
Right? And I think, like I mentioned, there's a lot of DNA of cross collaboration between different teams, different individuals, which is key to driving innovation. So I would say something challenging would just make us sit up and go like, hey, how do I solve this, right? And more often than not, figure out a way to do it. And the only, I would say, cases in which it may not materialize is where you figure out how to do it, but it's not meeting the cost target of what would make sense to commercialize it. But I think over the times, I mean, over the last 8 years or so, we've found a good balance between making both of them.
Making it work both ways in terms of the tech and the price.
Yes. And where the product doesn't have that mandate, like the F99, we are not trying to commercialize it today. We're purely trying to solve a particular problem.
Okay. Okay.
And once we solved it, in that case, then we figure out how to make it cost efficient from a commercializing of the platform perspective.
So again, it comes down to you building the experience first and then trying to fit it into the budget rather than, getting the budget and then trying to meddle with the experience.
No, different. With the F77, it was all variables aligned on day one. With the F99, it need not have to be done so because F77, we knew if we are building a product with XYZ features and we wanted to be top of the line in terms of performance, design, and technology, we were also very, very insistent internally that it meets price parity with comparable IC engine vehicles. So this band of IC engine vehicles today in India go from 2.5 lakhs all the way to about 5 lakhs. And with the F77 platform, we are between 3 and 4 lakhs.
So you've kind of been able to stay within the line.
Yes.
Okay. So I have a little bit of a fun session here because I think we've had enough of the heavy. So
Okay.
it's just a quick rapid fire round. So you are supposed to give quick answers, right?
Okay.
So starting with the first one. So when you build aero models in your free time, your wife thinks you are A, the coolest husband ever, B, a grown man playing with toys, C, designing the next ultraviolet prototype, or D, escaping reality through miniature aviation.
For sure, C, and I hope there is an A also to it.
No, you're supposed to pick one. Okay, great. So C is your option.
Yeah.
Okay. So your aviation DNA shows most when you A, design motorcycle pairings like aircraft fuselage, B, test aerodynamics at 3 a.m. in the morning, C, explain active aerodynamics to investors using jet metaphors, or D, actually pilot testing every design decision.
It's actually all of the above. But if I was to pick one, I would pick D because that's the most exciting for me because all of the work that goes in, the most
What
exciting
experience
is
it?
testing it out.
Okay, great. So again, the Eiffel Tower launch in Paris felt like a childhood dream coming true, B, India announcing its arrival on the global stage, C, the best marketing budget ever spent, or D, standing where you stood as a wide-eyed kid 30 years ago.
I mean, tough choices because all of them also some way make sense. But I would say in this case, for us, the matter of pride is B. India announcing.
Its arrival on the global stage.
Yes.
Very connected. Okay. So we all know that Dalki Salman has been an investor in Ultraviolet. So having him as an investor is A, the coolest celebrity to call during bike troubles. B, someone who genuinely understands performance motorcycles. C, living proof that good design attracts quality people. Or D, the reason your social media engagement spiked.
Again, there's a component of each, but I would say here B would be one of the key aspects because he's a connoisseur of automobiles. He's got a huge collection of cars, bikes, and the fact that now he's been part of our journey and in some way, uh, not just watching outside in, but also contributing to our growth as a company is amazing. So that would be B.
Great. Okay. So your leadership philosophy in one quote. A, innovation is saying no to 1,000 things by Steve Jobs. B, first principles thinking beats conventional wisdom. That's from Elon Musk. Design is not just what it looks like, design is how it works, again by Steve Jobs. And perfection is achieved when there's nothing left to remove. This is one of the aviation principles.
Again, everything makes sense, but if I had to pick one, I would pick option A because that is part of my philosophy where every time we try to solve a problem, I spend more time with the team on figuring out what all we've evaluated and discarded before coming to what we selected and went ahead with. So yeah, it's about going through a few thousand potential solutions because most often the most obvious solutions, if they don't exist in the world, they don't for a reason. We are not the first people to think about it. We have a few billion people on the planet and no idea is unique, right?
That's true.
Then the more you discard, that's when you start scraping down at the bottom of innovation and figuring out what you can do that is different in you. Yeah, long answer, but yeah, the option A would be the one that occupies this.
Yeah, okay. So when people say Tesla of India, you think A, great comparison, but we are creating our own category. B, Tesla never made motorcycles, we are rewriting the rules. C, flattering, but we want to be the ultraviolet of the world. Or D, India doesn't need to copy anyone anymore.
I think it's D, clearly, yes.
India doesn't need to copy anyone anymore.
And that's what we hope, not just us, but as a collective, that's what we grow into.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. That was a fun rapid fire. So I think we are pretty closing to the time that you had. So
Cool.
just to wrap up, I just had a couple of more questions because I really want to take the whole gist out of this moment. Anyway, so now the F-77 is now racing in 10 European countries with F-99 setting records. So by 2030, when someone thinks made in India performance vehicles, what do you want them to picture?
I think by 2030, Made in India should by default come with a stamp of reliability, design, desire. Yeah, these three. And once you have these three, then there are subcomponents of tech and performance. That is what is making this happen.
Mm-hmm.
But desire, design, reliability are what I think encapsulates the what an India stamp should stand for.
Great. So you're planning an adventure motorcycle next. So,
Oh, was I wasn't.
no? Okay, maybe not. So,
I mean, we've spoken about the Tesseract and the Shockwave
yeah,
thus
okay.
far.
So, what I'm really keen about is, after what we're going to see Ultraviolet's next innovation. So, is the aviation DNA, actually going to kick in? Do you have any plans for an electric aircraft or flying vehicles or something like that?
I mean, we definitely hope so. The aviation DNA is very much part of everything that we do. There are various ways in which you will find benefits of how that has sculpted the Tesseract, the Shockwave, and of course our entire portfolio of products.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Coming to aircrafts, you know that Neeraj and me tried to work on drones back in 2009 and
Yeah.
10. Yeah, so that I think that aspect of that passion is always going to be there, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, as the company grows and it allows us more capability as a team. Looking forward to taking on more and more interesting projects.
Amazing, amazing. So, let's say, but from 20 years from now, what's that one thing that you want to be remembered for beyond just building cool motorcycles? What is that one thing that you would really want people to associate with Ultraviolet as a brand, not just motorcycles?
We'd say fast tracking the future at all points in time. Today, the F-77 looks futuristic. 5 years from now, what is futuristic at that point in time, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
always chasing something ahead in time and trying to predict whether what you're chasing is what makes sense and what is that fine line between not being too futuristic to the extent that it's not
Possible or acceptable
relevant or
by,
possible today, but
yeah,
futuristic enough where it greatly benefits you more than what the rest of the industry is doing.
current, yeah, more than what the current offerings are.
Yes.
Okay, great. So from that wide-eyed kid standing in front of the Eiffel Tower to the CEO launching India's first superbike at the same spot 30 years later, that's not just a business story. That's more like a manifestation of dreams, or something, a fairy tale sorts. So what
That's
advice would you give to someone with similar audacious dreams?
my advice would be to first acknowledge that it's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go through a few loops and you'll have to success in most cases, right? Success is often built on a mountain of failure, right? And you there is no escaping that if you want to truly disrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to be so successful in your first attempt, that likely means you're not the first one to think of it or solve it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to take time. So that patience is something that is required. And different industries, that amount of patience is also relative. In our case, it was 5 to 7 years. In some other industry, it could be longer. In a digital world, it could be shorter.
Mm-hmm.
But patience is key. Second is, as part of the founding team, the number of people who started the company or are driving things in the organization, domain expertise is very, very important. If
Okay.
you're talking about the hardware space,
Mm-hmm.
then it is not a business that is driving the company. It is core innovation and technology. So it's design and engineering that is driving the company,
Mm-hmm.
right? So while business is an important aspect of how the growth happens, the core is still quite solid on innovation. Has needs to be solid on innovation.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to take on something in the hardware space, then ideally the core people starting the uh, doing the attempt should have some experience or knowledge in that domain.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think those would be two important because
Okay.
I said the second was important because you see a lot of people thinking of looking at success in some spaces and thinking, oh, that's an area of interest from the investor community. Can I jump in?
But that
Right?
would kind of be the
Not work
recipe
out
to
in the long
failure.
run.
So your message to the youngsters is one, that success is a recipe mastered, with the key ingredient being failures. And the second is that the fundamentals have to be really, really strong in whatever area that you're trying to step into.
Absolutely.
Okay. So wrapping up, Narayan, I just want you to complete this sentence. So if you want to build something the world has never seen, start by.
Oh man. If you want to build something the world has never seen, I'd say start with science fiction. That's what I would do.
Science fiction, my God, that's an interesting answer to this question, the one that I could have never imagined. I thought you would have these, fundamental principles rolling on. Okay, they start by testing or, having a good team or something like that. This is science fiction,
Oh,
my God,
but
that's another level of inspiration.
something the world has never seen, then the core is imagination. You
Agreed.
imagine. That's why I'm saying the genre of science fiction is where it's unrestrained imagination, right? So start there,
Uh-huh.
and then yeah, the rest of it is functional to giving form to that idea.
Okay. All right. That's okay. So that was a great session with you, Narayan. I hope you had as much fun as I did knowing about the journey that you've had. And I'm sure the audience would be thrilled to hear and learn from your experiences, your advices, and the kind of journey that you've been through. So thank you
And
for taking the time,
the
being here
same
with
with
us.
me. It
Sorry?
was a great conversation. Thank you for sort of navigating the conversation into such an interesting format. And yeah, I hope it comes out well.
Definitely. We'll keep you posted there. And I hope to see you guys soon whenever I am next in Bangalore. And maybe we could do this an in-person session as well. And
Sure.
let's stay in touch. We would want to know all about what Ultraviolet is doing and kind of give it out to our audience. They would be much interested as well.
Cool, cool. Looking forward. Thank
Definitely,
you. It's been a
definitely.
wonderful chat.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm glad you had fun.
All right.
Thank you, Narayan. Bye bye.